popping above that downward sloping trend line is the key. That is like the final signal, right? Where it's almost unmistakable. We're above it. We're out of the bear trend, right? And then it becomes a sideways market. But then the question is, when are we going to get our test back up to that trend line, right? Are we going to go down a little bit? When are we going to pop back up there? One of them is the daily RSI, this key 50 level, right? We are still in a downtrend. So technically we should be treating it with a bearish bias. The likelihood of down is higher currently. And I would say that technically, as long as we're below the 50, we should probably treat the market with a bearish bias, because it's likely that, it's resistance now. It could just continue to be resistance. We come up to it, reject. Bitcoin goes for another leg down. Sure, that is possible. That is very possible. But the point here is that once we crack above that 50 level, just like all those other major moves that take place, if we crack above the 50 level, that's when things are going to get hot and spicy in this market. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today we're going to be talking about the price of Bitcoin, where we are in this current trend here. So there's been a lot of talk about all kinds of stuff today because we had the CPI print come in at 9.1%, the highest we've seen in 40 years, right? So inflation is getting worse than we thought. Every time we think we're going to top out in inflation levels, we just continue to go up more. And this is causing the odds of a 75 basis point hike in September to go up to nearly 100%. And this was just from this morning. And now what we're seeing is that the market is pricing in an 83% probability of a 100 basis point hike at the FOMC meeting in 2 weeks. So the market thinks it's an 83% probability of a 100 basis point hike right now. And the interesting thing about that is that today, the stock market, didn't do much. It was pretty neutral. And if we hop over to the futures right now, not all too much happening here either, pretty neutral. So we have all this news coming in, and also Bitcoin price pretty neutral, even though everyone's very certain that we're going to see, a 100 basis point hike in 2 weeks. So that to me is very interesting. It tells me that the market has likely priced in this type of event taking place already, or at least we're close, right? It is possible that we could see another final leg down in the stock market. It is possible that we could see another leg down for Bitcoin as well. One final test to the downside. All of those things are possible, but it's looking more and more like we're getting closer to a bottom. And that's kind of what I came to the conclusion of today. And before we dive into the video, I want to hop onto some key on-chain metrics that also support the argument that we're at least near the bottom, where, like I'm saying, it is possible that we can get another downside test, but the PUL multiple tracking the profitability of miners is sitting at the historic lows, sitting near there, right? So while, yes, there is room that we could maybe touch the bottom of that range right there on the next final dip or whatever, it's just very likely that, we don't really spend much time down here. This would suggest that basically in August, just like the 3 months here, the 3 months here, the 3 months here, in August we would recover according to all these previous zones. So we're looking for maybe an August recovery according to the PUL multiple, other than a short-term dip, right? I'm thinking that we're pretty close to the bottom, and I was looking at this chart here with the 100 SMA and the 50 SMA, right? And these death crosses for Bitcoin, quote unquote death crosses that we're coming up on now. Look at this right here, right? These two moving averages are about to converge. The 50 and 100 SMAs on the weekly. When we see this happening in previous cycles, we're near the bottom. And it's always after a major parabolic downswing. Major parabolic downswing, major parabolic downswing. The chart normally shapes up to look something like it's looking like right now when we get this cross. And it's called the death cross, but guys, if you mark up where it takes place, it's at the bottom over here in 2015. If you mark it where it takes place in 2018, it's at the bottom over here in 2018, right? And so looking at Bitcoin now, right there, guys. We're coming up on it once again. So if we're not at the bottom now, then it's likely just going to be maybe one more move down. If, you know, we're likely very close. And what I want to do here is pull up the Bitcoin halvings. And I want to show you guys something here. The Bitcoin halving from, right, first halving to this death cross here, it's about 860 days, something around that point, 850 days. If you look at the second halving to where the crosses take place, about 950 days. Third halving, 850 to 950 days would put us somewhere in the vicinity of October of this year. We are at that point right now. The timing is almost identical. And also, basically, when will we know that we're going to have a major trend shift? And I was talking about this on Twitter earlier. And one of the things that I was looking at was the RSI. And if you look at the RSI here, and you mark up the 50 level, right? So we have that 50 line in the middle here. When you're looking at Bitcoin and you see, when do our major pivots take place? If you're looking back here, you know, back in 2020, before we had the real bull run above 12 to 13K, the RSI was sitting below that white 50 line right there. And the 50 level is a very key level when it comes to using the RSI and the way that traders interact with this indicator, right? And while we're below the 50 level, we come up, we use it as resistance. We're kind of like hugging below that. But once we get a full break of the 50, that is when the bull run begins. And you can see that we dipped back on the other side to the 50 level almost the entire bull run until when? Until right here when we had a clear break below, right? Remember, clear break above, clear break below. And when we got this clear break below, what happened? We went from an uptrend to a downtrend, right? Let me just move this chart here. See this? We got that break below, clearly turns into a downtrend. And so moving along here, we see Bitcoin using the 50 level as resistance right there. When do we start to uptrend again? After the downtrend, when do we shift? Boom, 50 level is broken on the daily RSI. Uptrend, major uptrend. Okay, we had a couple fake outs in between, and then what happened? Clear break below the 50, downtrend begins. Using 50 as resistance right there. Downtrend continues. Of course, it's not always perfect, but when did the downtrend resume? Right here, when we clearly just came right back below the 50. And then boom, downtrend begins. And here we are today, using the 50 as resistance. And I would say that technically, as long as we're below the 50, we should probably treat the market with a bearish bias, sort of, right? Because it's likely that, you know, it's resistance now. It could just continue to be resistance. We come up to it, reject. Bitcoin goes for another leg down. Sure, that is possible. That is very possible. But the point here is that once we crack above that 50 level, just like all those other major moves that take place, if we crack above the 50 level, that's when things are going to get hot and spicy in this market. So keep your eye on that 50 level. That's going to be, you know, your pivot, your major pivot indicators for Bitcoin, right? Pivot down. All of these major pivots are happening along the 50 level on the RSI. And currently we have an uptrend on the RSI. Last time we had this, of course, we kind of just broke down. So maybe we break down again and test a slightly lower low. But if we crack above it, guys, boom, that is going to be a pivot in the trend, a shift up, and possibly a confirmation of a bottom, right? Currently we're below it, but you guys know what I mean. So again, we're at this point now where we're very close to potentially getting, whether we come down a little bit, right? We're very close to potentially getting a rally up to this resistance. You know, if we get above the 50 level on the RSI, guys, we'll probably rally up into this zone. And then as these moving averages cross, look to consolidate. And then once we pop this downward sloping trend line, guys, popping above that downward sloping trend line is the key. That is like the final signal, right? Where it's almost unmistakable. We're above it. We're out of the bear trend, right? And then it becomes a sideways market. Right now, it's a downward market, a mega bear trend. Once we get above that red line, boom, it is at least a sideways market, if not a sign of recovery, right? So just wanted to hop on here and give you guys sort of my updated thoughts based on the news that we got today, how I see the market viewing this. You know, again, Slightly lower lows are possible for Bitcoin, but it's starting to, the trend is sort of telling me, hey, maybe we should start thinking about, looking out for those reversal signals, especially that 50 level in the daily RSI. But guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to support this channel, definitely join the Patreon, link in description. Go to my website here. Cryptowatch, it's free to sign up. Also, there's some sign up bonus links, $4,000 deposit bonus for BitGet, which is a US approved exchange and no KYC. Also KuCoin, most of you guys probably already use that. And that is it, guys. I'll see you soon.